Hello, my name is Jufh of Maidah and my student number is 132.
Hello, my name is Dian Winanti with student number ID 134.
Hi, I'm Dini Abiana Rahmani with student number 136. Alright everyone, today we are going to talk about psycholinguistics. There are 7 keywords that we will explain in this material. Those are language areas, speech error, malapropism, spoonerism, aphasia, dichotic listening, and critical period. But before that, did you know what psycholinguistics is? Let me explain it to you. Psycholinguistics is a study that combines psychology and linguistics to understand language processing mechanisms, such as how people acquire, use, and understand language. This branch of linguistics is studying how complex words and sentences are composed in speech, and how these words and sentences are broken down into the acts of listening, reading, and speaking. According to the book Contemporary Linguistic Analysis, psycholinguists study how word meaning, sentence meaning, and discourse meaning are computed and represented in mind. Psycholinguists also analyze language disorders such as aphasia. In short, psycholinguistics is a study to understand how language is done.
Knowing about what psycholinguistic is, we are going to move to the first keywords, language areas. But before we talk about language areas, there is something called neurolinguistics in order to gain a deeper understanding of psycholinguistics. What is neurolinguistics? So, neurolinguistics is the study of the relationship between language and the brain. There are already a number of discoveries have been made about the specific parts in the brain that are related to language function. There are two sides of the brain that have different function, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere is more responsible for creative thinking or emotional, involving daydreaming and imagination. Meanwhile, the left hemisphere is more responsible for analytical thinking or logic. The left hemisphere controls the right side of the body, whereas the right hemisphere controls the left side. If we are going to talk about language areas in the brain, they are divided into some areas based on a study or its function. Here, I will explain each of them. 1. Broca's area, technically described as anterior speech cortex, and this was reported and studied by Paul Broca, a French surgeon, who argues that language ability must be located in the left hemisphere. 2. Wernicke's area, also known as the posterior speech cortex by Carl Wernicke, who confirmed the left hemisphere location of language ability and is crucially involved in the understanding of spoken language. 3. The motor cortex and arcuate fasciculus. Motor cortex means an area that controls the movement of the muscles, moving hands, feet, arms, or etc. And arcuate fasciculus means a bundle of nerve fibers. These two things form a crucial connection between Broca's and Wernicke's area.
And next we have speech error and brain diseases. When we say something but it's different from what we intended to say, it's called speech error, and it's commonly happen in everyday speech. And brain diseases, in terms of linguistic itself, means more specific types of speech error because the speaker is suffering from a disease and needs medical treatment like aphasia. And it also means that speech error is not the same as brain diseases because speech error is just a typo that commonly but not always happen in everyday life. What I'm going to explain further is the example of speech error. And the first one, we have the tip of the tongue phenomenon. This speech error happens when you feel like you know the word, what you know what you want to say, but it just comes to the surface. It's like when a speaker produces meditation instead of medication. Both of the words sound similar, yet has a whole different meaning. There are often strong phonological similarities between the target word and the mistake that get produced. This mistake is called malapropism. And the second is slips of the tongue. This speech error occurs when the speaker accidentally swaps the sounds of the words that they said, especially in the first consonant, like when the speaker said "sat balad" instead of "bad salad." This slip mistake is called spoonerism. The third one, we have slip of the brain. This speech error when the word substitution are similar but inappropriate words are used instead of the target. Like when the speaker said we've had some sex. But what the speaker actually means is we've had some setbacks. The slip divided into 3 general types. The first one is perseveration. It's like when one sound is carried to the next word, like walking wabbit instead of walking rabbit. And the second is anticipation. It's like when a sound is used before its occurrence in the next word, like leading list instead of reading list. And the last is exchange. It's when sounds change places, like feel better instead of feel better. And then the last examples of the speech error we have slips of the ear is when the speech error when the brain tries to make sense of the auditory signal they receive. In a crowded restaurant, there are possibilities to mishear the word split the bill instead of become yang slip of the ear tolong di-cut Dian, sorry. And then the last one we have maksudku cut, sorry. And for the last example of the speech error, we have slips of the ear. It's when the brain tries to make sense of the auditory signal that they receive in a crowded restaurant. There are possibilities to mishear the word split the bill become skip the bill.
And the example of brain disease is aphasia. Aphasia is defined as an impairment of language function due to localized brain damage that leads to difficulty in understanding or producing any linguistic form. And aphasia most commonly caused by stroke or head injuries. There are different types of aphasia: Broca's aphasia, Wernicke's aphasia, and conduction aphasia are classified based on the primary symptoms of someone having difficulties with language. Number 1. Broca's aphasia. This language disorder is characterized by substantially reduced amount of speech, distorted articulations, and effortful speech. The speeches produced are lacking grammatical forms or agrammatic speech. For example, I asked and ate instead of I ate an egg. Number 2. Wernicke's aphasia. This language disorder produces very fluent speech but is often difficult to understand. Also, difficulty in finding the correct word, referred to as anomia. For example, I saw a meldiger in there, when the intention is I saw a small tiger. Number 3. Conduction aphasia. Type of aphasia has been associated with damage to arcuate fasciculus. Individuals with conduction aphasia are fluent, but may have disrupted rhythm because of pauses and hesitation. The attempts at self-correction and impaired verbatim repetition. For example, bass low, less low, bass call, cascall for baseball.
Then we move to decoded listening. It is an experimental technique to study the brain function, how different hemispheres of the brain handle different tasks in processing a language. This also to find out how well someone can focus on one auditory sound while ignoring another sound, like the background noises. For example, through the right earphone comes the syllable ka or the word dog, and through the left earphone, at exactly the same time, comes the or cat. When asked to say what was heard, the subject more often correctly identifies the sound that came via the right ear, which is ka or dog.
After all of this explanation about what psycholinguistic is, language areas, brain disease, dichotic listening, we finally move to something that is important when we learn languages, and that is critical period. What does critical period mean? Well, during childhood, there is a period when the human brain is always ready to receive input and learn a particular language, known as the critical period, which coincides with the period during which language acquisition takes place. It highlights the interplay between the genes or nature with the environment or nurture. These two give impact on how the brains develop and learn the first language acquisition during childhood. And so that's why learning second language can be possible, but generally it requires more effort and practice when you pass the critical period.
So guys, we are at the end of the video. Maybe that's all that we can explain to you guys. If you have any questions about the material, feel free to ask in the comment section below. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.